Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this program. Tonight we'd like to have a follow-up on what is happening in Mozambique. But in some of the video circulating on the social media, the soldiers in Mozambique are now siding with the election protesters. This is an interesting development, Benjamin.
Good day to everybody, and thank you for joining us. When I was actually watching the video, I couldn't help but smile. It's a beautiful sight where, regardless of the circumstances, there is that togetherness, the coming together to realize that, we are all in this mess, and it's up to us to get ourselves out of it. The soldiers and the civilians coming together, singing, chanting, the togetherness basically is a powerful message alone to show their discontent. They're not happy with the current system, and as moving forward, that voice becomes louder, be it towards SADC, the handling the issue, the constitutional court in Mozambique that is also handling the issue. This is a firm message to say, this will not end until you realize our freedoms. And I really commend the people of Mozambique and the army in particular, to stand for your people. That is your mandate when you signed up, that you will protect the citizens of that country.
Well, I'll quickly play the video, just a short part, a piece of it. Yes, it is gratifying to see a scene like that. But I was just going to also quickly play a video clip just to remind those who may not be aware of what is going on in Mozambique, to update them on what really went on.
High Commissioner, Professor Talente Khusere. Prof, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. The riots in Mozambique are post-election riots, and oftentimes those are classified as deeply violent that borders on human rights violations. What is the view of the High Commission's office on the ongoing protests that we're seeing, post-election protests in particular?
Thank you so much. The truth of the matter is there have been a lot of violations of human rights in the Mozambican side, and especially regarding the killings of top opposition officials, which actually sparked the unrest. And there have been so many people who got killed throughout the process. When they were protesting, the state security has been sent and they killed more than 50 people now. And this is a result of a perpetuated debilitating dilemma within the region, which is the continuation of illegitimacy within our governments. The Mozambican election is fluid. There were a lot of irregularities throughout the electoral processes. And whatever that is happening in Mozambique right now is just a slap on the face of democracy. And it's actually evoke a sobriquet on the face of the people of Mozambique and the Southern Africa region at large. And it's in this regard that we have launched an investigation to find out what exactly conspired in Mozambique, which is something that also led us into understanding that there have been an interference by the Zimbabwean president and the Zimbabwean ruling party, which has been sending people to vote from the Zimbabwean side when the Mozambican elections was happening.
Prof, what evidence is there to suggest that the Zimbabwean president had used Zimbabwean nationals to interfere and misconstrue or at least distort the outcome of the Mozambican elections?
Well, it's not the first time that the Zimbabwean president and the ruling is trying to interfere with the neighboring elections, and that is not a secret. We saw that happening in Botswana, which resulted in the people of Botswana protesting against him. We saw that even in South Africa. Now it's in Mozambique, and we have some videos that we got from a news media in Zimbabwe, which is called The Mirror, which actually went on the event where Zimbabweans were given voters' IDs, where Zimbabweans were given Mozambican IDs to vote for Frelimo, and they even testified in those videos that they had voted and they were happy that they had voted for Frelimo, considering that is their neighboring country and they could get some benefits. It's not a secret. We even saw one of the Frelimo officials campaigning for ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe when there were elections in Zimbabwe. This is not a secret. It's something that needs to be faced.
Prof, have you managed to corroborate the video evidence in your possession that suggests that the Zimbabwean president had deployed Zimbabwean nationals to go and vote in the Mozambican elections? You have the video evidence which you received from news media outlet The Mirror. Has it been corroborated?
We have sent the video. I have sent the video to Sophie Mokoena, which actually shows Zimbabweans who have been voting, who had voted for Frelimo from the Zimbabwean side.
Just a very important question here, and I think this is then the crux of the matter. The Constitutional Court of Mozambique has not yet been ratified the election results. They're yet to do so. Given the profound claim that you're making that the Zimbabwean government, or at least the Zimbabwean president and Zimbabwean nationals, had interfered in the Mozambican election, does that mean that the Constitutional Court of Mozambique cannot ratify those results as free and fair?
Those results can never be rectified to be free and fair. You cannot rectify an illegality. We cannot allow such illegitimacy to be legitimized. The election was not free, the election was not fair, and the evidence is there. You have seen how many people died throughout the elections, and this evidence that we are giving out is a part of the rigging that happened in Mozambique.
Yeah. Prof. Talent Khusera, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate it. That is the High Commissioner of the Southern African Human Rights Lawyers. We will reach out to Zimbabwean authorities, in particular the Office of the President of Zimbabwe, for a right of reply on the claim that they had interfered with the Mozambican elections.
I think the question to be asked now is, I don't know whether you've got any of the latest information on the SADC summit. It was supposed to take place in Zimbabwe starting the 16th of November. That's in 2 days' time, day after tomorrow. I don't know whether you have heard anything on it, Ben. Sorry, while we wait for Benjamin to come back on, as far as I know, there have been protests by the Mozambican nationals that the summit, the SADC summit, should not take place in Zimbabwe, given the political reality that the ZANU-PF has been named as one of the parties involved in the flawed election process. There have been a number of flaws in the electoral process. Some of them would no doubt be attributed to the Mozambican authorities themselves, but Zimbabwe has been named as one foreign nation that has been involved in the rigging of those elections. And for the SADC summit to meet in Zimbabwe to discuss Mozambique election crisis, I think is not on. And I think SADC leaders themselves should use that as an opportunity to express their disappointment with ZANU-PF. That summit should be moved to another country. It will not take much, even if it means the summit itself is delayed by another day or two. It's worth it. ZANU-PF cannot be allowed off the hook, given what has happened here. That has been the argument. Benjamin, I don't know whether you've got anything to add on this issue of the summit.
Yes. So it's quite from what I'm hearing and reading on our local papers. We know that the Constitutional Court of Mozambique has not, come forward to authenticate or to pass judgment on the past elections. So the question now that is, going around is, how then does SADC, pass judgment when it seems as if, the constitution, they have to wait for the Constitutional Court to first, say exactly where they stand, and then from there SADC would act. So it seems as if, it's this whole extraordinary summit is just going to be, for face. We can't keep quiet, when things are not okay in our, our one of our states. It's quite difficult to actually see how this extraordinary summit is going to help Mozambique if the Constitutional Court is not coming forward. That is the question that is doing the rounds.
Well, I think one of the reasons why the Constitutional Court has failed to pronounce the results, because initially, or in the grapevines, it was leaked that the Mozambican ruling party Frelimo had won the elections, and this is what triggered the protests. But now, when the election authorities have seen for themselves that there really were a lot of flaws and irregularities, I think they may find themselves in a situation where, as much as they don't want to pronounce judgment on themselves and say the election process was flawed, they also do not want to inflame their opposition by pronouncing a judgment in the face of the evidence that the process was flawed. So I think SADC to interfere in this, to call the summit and try to resolve the issue is the logical thing to do. They don't have to wait for the Mozambique authority to pronounce a judgment on the issue. I think the evidence is already there on the public for people to see for themselves that the process was not flawed. So the best thing to do is for SADC to meet. The question then is, are they going to meet in Harare as planned, or are they going to move it somewhere else? And I think moving it somewhere else would be, in the circumstances, the most appropriate thing to do. And I hope that they make it abundantly clear that they are not happy with what ZANU-PF has done, and this issue should not be allowed to be swept under the carpet. SADC, as a regional body, should step in and really take decisive action on this matter. That cannot be negotiated anymore. ZANU-PF has been allowed to rig the Zimbabwean elections last year and get away with it. SADC and the AU election observer missions condemned those processes, the elections, as flawed and illegal. But they could not take the logical next step of denying ZANU-PF political legitimacy, because the opposition, Zimbabwe's opposition, participated in those elections and managed to con millions of their own supporters to participate. And even after SADC and the AU had said the election process was flawed, MCCC politicians, be that in Parliament, Senate, or the local council elections that also went on, all those who had won any seats took up their seats under the pretext that wherever CCC had won, those are liberated zones. Of course, it was nonsense. There was no verified voters roll in the whole country. That affected those areas where the opposition had won as much as those areas where ZANU-PF claimed to have won. The process itself was judged to be flawed. And you judge the election on the basis of the process, not on the basis of the results. You can't cherry pick and say where we have won, the elections were free, fair, and credible. Where we lost, the elections were not free. So in the circumstances when CCC leaders accepted the results as free, fair, and credible, at least in those areas where they'd won, SADC had no choice but to accept the totality of the process. And therefore, then they could not deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy. In the case of Mozambique, it's totally different. The opposition have rejected the election process. The evidence shows that the election process was flawed. The evidence shows that foreign nationals, in this case, Zimbabweans, had participated in those Mozambican elections. That cannot be right. So I really hope with this issue and with the Mozambican army, at least some of the sections we can see in this video, supporting the ordinary Mozambicans in protesting the results, that is a positive thing. I don't know whether you want to say your closing remarks there, Ben.
Okay. Just before I give my closing remarks, I would like to add that the Constitutional Court of Mozambique has extended its right to give judgment, as they are currently, examining the evidence. So they will only come forward sometime early next month. So I think this, in light of this development, I don't know how SADC will proceed, because obviously there is the rule to say, you have to exhaust, legal means within your country first. And, them saying that they have received all this, irregularities, like you mentioned, they are, they are working on it and they are authenticating it, and I don't know exactly what they are doing, but they will only come forward with judgment sometime early next month, which kind of puts this extraordinary meeting ahead of the Constitutional Court, which I think they would say, let's wait and see what the law of the land says, and then we would work on that. I don't know your take on this point that I've just mentioned.
Well, I think in this particular case there are merits in saying, okay, let's wait to hear what the Mozambican authorities themselves say on the issue. But also on the other end, there are also good points in saying there is no point in dragging this whole issue, because as much as one is pleased to note that the protests have died down, if they were to be reignited, you could have more people killed, more people injured, more property destroyed, and yet at the end of the day, you can only say the conclusion that we already know, based on the evidence that we have on hand, is not going to change. The process was flawed. It doesn't take, in this case here, remember the elections in Mozambique were done last month in October. It doesn't take a month to count the votes and to come to a decision. If they are trying to say that the process was not flawed, then declare the results. You've counted the votes, declare the results. If they are hesitating because they have uncovered flaws, then say so. Why are you dragging your feet? Personally, I would say the SADC, as much as they would want the country to be involved in this process, and they would consult with the Mozambican government, they would, if I was SADC, also talk them into accepting that the process is flawed. Let's deal with it, instead of just dragging the whole issue to next month. Why does it take so long to resolve an issue? It's comparable to what happened in Zimbabwe in 2008, when the ZANU-PF regime interfered with the vote counting in the March election. It went on to take another 6 weeks to count 5 million votes. And then the result, when it was declared, it was a cooked up result. That contributed to, at the end of the day, SADC saying they will not give legitimacy to ZANU-PF. So in this particular case, there is no need to drag out this whole issue. Election observers who were there, and SADC, I'm sure they had their own election observers, they must come up with their own report and recommendation. You do not need to drag out an issue like this and make the election process, the counting and the declaring of the results, take what, 2 months? It's ridiculous. But I agree, if that is what SADC or the Mozambican authorities are insisting on, and SADC have accepted it, it doesn't really matter. One way or the other, at the end of the day, this issue must be resolved. And I think it is important that it should be resolved. So go ahead, Ben.
Yes, I agree with you. I would say, the calm in Mozambique currently is because, I think they are giving leeway to say, let's see or let's find out, what course of justice would be taken, by SADC, since they have come forward and they have, called for this, extraordinary meeting to discuss the best way forward for us as a country, and if SADC does not take a firm stance, to try and fix this whole mess, then I think we are probably going to have another round of fresh protests. And I would agree with what Glot is saying there, to say, it's going to be very, very, uh, all eyes are going to be on SADC, basically, because, we know ZANU PF has already congratulated, the Frelimo party for winning the elections. I'm not sure about Ramaphosa, if he had done that, as well, before the whole constitutional court and everything. It's going to be very, very, I think this is, a defining moment for SADC. Like rightfully you said, our situation and that of Mozambique were the same. The only difference is that, Triple C members legalized the whole process by, getting sworn in and taking up seats, thereby, painting the whole, a different picture. Unlike what the Mozambicans have done, they have stood firm and they have said, this is not what we want. This is not the will of the people. And whoever won, from the opposition is not accepting whether win or defeat. That is the defining, statement there that has been made, that win or lose, liberated zones or non-liberated zones, the election process was flawed, and we are not, going to accept any result. So this here now, casts a SADC, into the limelight to say, okay, this is what has happened. This is what the people of Mozambique are saying. How are you going to act going forward? So I think, SADC as an organization stands very much to lose if they, first of all, they don't, you know, stop ZANU PF from meddling in other people's affairs, other countries' affairs. If, they do not come up with a fair resolution to this, Mozambican protest. Basically, we're already at the weekend. The summit is starting on Saturday, and hopefully we will be able to bring, breaking news as the situation develops each and every moment that we can.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. So my last remark on the issue is that it is a pity that ZANU-PF saw it fit to interfere in Mozambique's electoral process. But I hope that SADC have learned an important lesson here, and they're not going to let ZANU-PF off the hook. And I hope that there will be no more violence in Mozambique, and they come up with a solution of the way forward for that country. The way I see it, the best course of action will be for the nation to have some kind of government of national unity, whose main responsibility will be to implement democratic reforms to make sure that future elections in Mozambique are free, fair, and credible. And the nation will never have another repeat of these rigged elections. They've had rigged elections in the past, and since Mozambique's independence in 1975, they have had elections regularly, but nonetheless, they've been disputed elections. Just like Zimbabwe has had disputed elections for the last 44 years. Let's hope Mozambique will put an end to this once and once for all. And SADC will play a positive role in helping make this come about. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us today. And I hope you'll be able to do it again tomorrow, 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Thank you, Ben, and a good night.
Thank you. Good night, you all.